Welcome back to my channel Celebuzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. Bring him on board, people who suffer from mental illness, Smoke and Warner Brothers. And Clint Eastwood was my. Simply said, features a certain swagger, a cowboy hat and squint, a jaw-dropping one-liner, take a seat. He is more than simply a movie star. You can't help but notice him. However, admirers are inquiring. What's the deal with Charles, you mean Bronson? The understated, non-nonsense endeavor-piercing gaze capable of immobilizing time. In the same age, people frequently compare similar air of toughness, but who actually stood up? Standing tall in the gritty wild west of Hollywood, along with firearms, Clint Eastwood has at long last ended his mutiny. And his remarks could possibly shock you. Come along with us as we gaze upon the paths they took and uncover the reasons behind the ongoing fan argument over who is the true coolest dude, and the reason Eastwood believes Bronson might have been ahead in a surprising manner. Commencement of a major given name. The birthday of Clint Eastwood is May 31st, 1930 in the city of Angels in California. A huge baby he was. Huge to the point where his patient care team affectionately referred to him as Samson. He was Clinton Eastwood and Ruth were their parents. They had made their home on Oakland's Lake Merritt. About the time of Clint's birth, Clint possessed a Morey Jr. sibling. Gene was born in 1934. English ancestry ran deep in his family tree, Dutch, Irish, and Scottish soils. Not to mention that he may be traced back to William Bradford, who was among the first travelers to originated from the Mayflower. As a result, Clint 12th generation, having been born in American continent. Back in the 30s, his uprooted multiple times because of his father changed careers. However, after settling in as time went by in Piedmont, California, stable. None of that is necessary. For what? Would you like to meet up? If so, why not? You just state that they resided in a privileged community that offers a pool and membership in a country club. He was employed by his dad, working as an industrialist at Georgia Pacific Executive, while his mother found employment with IBM once the children grew up, in the role of clerk. But there were times when Clint struggled academically. It was attended the middle school in Piedmont and Hadin, ordered to retake a class due to poor performance. It became much worse during high school. After his time at Piedmont High, he was expelled for critiquing a school in an unprofessional manner executive while setting fire to a figurehead on the playground at the school. Thereafter, he became an Oakland, received my diploma from Technical High School in the year 1949. Clint worked his way up from occupations, such as lifeguard and paper boy, a supermarket worker, and a woodland protection from the elements. Also, he was a caddy for playing golf. He intended to travel to University of Seattle. However, prior to that probable outcome, he was enlisted in the United States Army during the Korean War. Then this is where the plot goes off the rails, the wheel, an accident that altered each and everyone. During Clint's time in the military, a surprising event transpired. While he was dating a lady whose father worked for Ford officer, that link might potentially ensured his safety during his military duty. On the other hand, one day on the way back from a trip, Clint was riding shotgun in a fighter jet, a Douglas AA bomber. The plane crashed after its fuel tank was empty, the water close to Point Reyes. Both Clint and the pilot's survival was a stroke of luck. They swam approximately 2 miles in a life raft to reach peace of mind. A narrow escape occurred, one that might have concluded his narrative prior to started at all. Only Clint survived, along with his dismissal from the military in February of 1953. That incident may have horrifying, yet it failed to deter him. It might have even brought him closer, going to Hollywood. While visiting Fort, or one day, a movie crew was operating in the area. One of the crew people saw Clint and extended an invitation to meet up with the head of the department. Despite that, this addition remains. Nevertheless, according to Clint's biography, it was a someone known as Chuck Hill, Clint, and the person who snuck him into the studio in I Am in Los Angeles. Pictured there was Clint meeting with cameraman later on Irving Goldberg established trail run with the helmsman Arthur Lubin. Lubin had doubts about Clint's acting abilities. It was so inexperienced, Lubin remarked at one point. Nonetheless, he informed Clint that he appreciated Clint's appearance. Why enroll in acting courses. It was sufficient to secure Clint's initial deal with a studio in for about $100 per week in 1954. That initially stepping through the threshold, but the actual labor just got going. A challenging start in the City of Angels. Clint struggled at first time. Everyone thought he looked great, but he could improve his acting. He communicated his message through on film. He appeared rigid and gritted his teeth, a fashion that will eventually inform his charm. Regardless, the filmmakers impressed throughout the initial period. I had my very first audition for Six Bridges, sent in 1954 to Cross, but failed to receive the part. At last, he landed a supporting role in Onslaught of the Monster in 1955. In the future, playing the role of Lady Godiva in that year's Coventry, and played a minor role in Louis served as a sailor in the United States Navy under the command of U. Jonesy. Uncredited, he even made an appearance in a tarantula in the role of a pilot. With respect to those during that time, Clint made do with what he could get. Ever Say Goodbye was his acting debut, under 4 hours. After, a second little, his portrayal of the character in Star in The Dust of Farmer's Helper. Me Van was even his fling. Doran, who played a leading role in that picture. His first genuine break came from television. Usage of electronic devices. Clint was born on July 2, 1955, showed up on Allen's movie Land appearing alongside Tony Curtis, Steve Allen, and Billy Joel. A short while later, though in the future, Universal let him go. The final day of the contract was October 23, 1955. His aspirations to be an actor appeared to be over. A fresh opportunity, however, that wholly altered the course of his life. Many years, around 1963, Clint was continuing to perform in the TV Western Rawhide. However, in the event that the partner in crime Eric Fleming declined unusual proposition to collaborate on a low-budget Italian picture, Clint followed lined up. There were a handful of $100, and it became Agamecker. This film was directed by Sergio Leone, whereas filming took place in Spain, situated quite a distance from the City of Angels. It was a small undertaking. In fact, that Clint's compensation was a Mercedes-Benz and $15,000 for his efforts. However, Clint saw the film as an opportunity to depart from his image as a good guy by give it a go and see what happens. He was involved in a secretive, unassuming cowboy. I didn't not even get a character's name, much less Abe hold a firearm and a cigar. Regardless of Telion, in actuality, Clint did not smoke, prompted him to light up on film. It joined his character's difficult image. Visually, the film differed from the regular American westerns. The experience was darker, dirtier, and bloodier. To save the day, Clint wasn't using Abe happy. He was fulfilling his duty to concluded, regardless of how unattractive it may have seemed. A handful of cash became popular in Italy because of such achievement. 2 additional filming for a small additional fee in the positive, negative, and ugly. In all 3 cinema theaters became famous for their one trilogy. However, it was not until globally, not only in Europe. In the case of individuals, for those unfamiliar with the tale, these 3, the United States youth were in Paris or across Europe on vacation. Nevertheless, Clint was still not finished. Larger scale films, larger prizes. As soon as he gained fame, more and more roles began to come Clint's way. It was involved in a wide range of cinematic projects, including westerns, drama, conflict, and romance. He was most grossing films of all time were each of such works as Way But Loose and Any Which Method That Works For You. These films demonstrated to Clint could elicit laughter, instead of mere stares put them down. More seriously, he did television, shows and movies such as Josie Paths to Freedom, Pale Rider, and The Welsh Countryside, as well as Heartbreak Ridge. With each film, mold his image into a harsh, no-nonsense one. But after that, Clint started revealing a different side of he is the one operating the camera. Around 1967 launched his own business, Mal Paso Productions. Following that, nearly all of his films set in the USA were branded with such moniker. And gradually, transformed himself from a mere celebrity to a highly esteemed head of the department. He was the director, and star-studded the gloomy Western Unforgiven that demonstrated the true essence of progress aged in a hostile environment. It was the movie that took it all him not 1, but 2 Oscars, including Best Actor, Cinematographer, and a 3rd for the Oscar. In 2004, he repeated the process with the boxing drama $1 Million Baby, won him the identical pair of Oscars. Dear Clint proceeded further. Under his command, Mystic the River, Iwima's Letters, and a U.S. Sniper. Facts were his storyteller, as well as Richard Jewell and Sully. He oversaw Juror #2 in 2024, demonstrating he maintained his motivation well into his 90s. A quote from him is, "Sometimes you eat the procedure, and at times the procedure consumes you," is Clint Eastwood's voice in a simply put. To name just one, he's among the only remaining cast member is him. Folks from Baby Doll, an individual who persisted despite Hollywood's rejection, and he managed to rack up dozens of notoriety, which includes 4 Academy Awards and 4 award ceremonies. He was even honored by France, by receiving their most prestigious accolades. Italy provided. The reward for his efforts throughout his life was the Golden Lion. However many accolades he receives, the expression on Clint's face remains unchanged. That identical vitality, that identical serenity power that initially captivated all paid close attention to the situation at Fort. Plus, he isn't unique among those who made an impression of that kind in the heart of Hollywood. Another guy was just without sound, with equal ferocity, and admirers continued to create a boundary between those people. The reason why Bronson and Eastwood are perceived when compared. Charlie Cruz, Clint Eastwood names like Bronson scream toughness. As time has passed, admirers have on multiple occasions. Why? For the reason that performers portrayed an air of authority, serenity, and coolness personality types. They never exhibited the traits of delivering lengthy speeches. Peering, pausing, and perhaps a one-liner. That was sufficient. The Man with No Ame was directed by Eastwood and Harriet the Spy. Paul Kersey came to us from Bronson over the band's history. Men like this didn't patiently await the realization of justice. They made their own personal own. They came to represent an era when many yearned for heroes who could seize command. Their performance was straightforward and precise, and still, their nonverbal cues, words, that became synonymous with them. Despite Eastwood's subsequent career shifts, and became a prominent filmmaker, Bronson remained next to him. As before, he was the rock-solid one, the unwavering warrior, the unyielding one. This distinction would influence there are still being questioned by followers regarding who truly excelled at it. Eastwood is not known for omitted other performers. From the discussion, he undoubtedly perceived Bronson as a formidable opponent. The bro in looks was a saying in the New York Times. Just as if he were going to hit someone, was the defining phrase that summed up energy that Bronson brought to each film. But what caused that fire? The Charles Bronson's challenging life. The author Charles Evan Bronson had his days as a struggling actor. Truthfully, he had a boisterous childhood struggle. Charles Bukinski was his given name. In Ahrenfeld on November 3, 1921, the Keystone State. The people responsible for his upbringing were Lithuanians going abroad. The actor Bronson 11th child out of 15. He was raised in severe poverty. Their humble abode hut close to the coal mines. Wow, that was packed to the point where the children slept shifts. Poor were they. Bronson was once mentioned that he wore one to class which he inherited from his sister. As a result, other than that, there was nothing to wear. With only, he joined the other miners on the 16th. It was spent some time in the office before moving on to the terrifying abysses. His earnings were $1. He brought up for every ton of coal. He had to put in extra hours every now and again to generate that $1. Erosion sites were widespread, and the work was lethal. Bronson was together with his sibling done risky things like clearing space between mines of stumps. Following he after Dad passed away in 1933, everything settled down less easily. Not enough food was available or dairy product. Bronson recalled feeling ravenous, who then proceeded to insist that his younger sister consume alcohol, milk instead of tea. In spite of all, to his family's knowledge, he became the first to get your diploma, a minor victory in a Kalenjin globe. His robust accent frequently convinced everyone around him that he was an alien. A tot home, nobody spoke English. His childhood fluent in Russian and Lithuanian. But even among his military peers, he was considered to be never lived in the United States. That persisted to not serve. Throughout what, the United States Army Air Forces recruited Bronson. He was trained to operate the weapon system of a B-29 bomber. It was wounded while flying 25 missions in the conflict, obtaining the Purple Heart title. From plunging coal to completing air missions, Bronson had previously experienced the thrill of adventure even before he set foot on a film set. Growing one's reputation in a dynamic Hollywood. It wasn't until after the war that Bronson became an overnight sensation. Any job he could get, he applied for could discover. He initially collaborated with a painting Philadelphia theater troupe sets. That odd gig on stage led to an exit to take action. He eventually settled in New. They lived in a little apartment together in New York City, beside Jack Klugman, the actor. They were both aiming for a career in comedy. Acting workshops were offered by Bronson at the West Hollywood's Pasadena Playhouse. Moreover, when he got his first film job in 1951, no one even acknowledged him as a sensei. He would still use his Charles Bukinski as his actual name. It was part of You're in the Navy. Now, a mob and the people are opposing O'Hara. It was, frequently, served in supporting or minor roles people, however, All of that changed in 1958. Bronson got his big break in Gun Kelly, Machine. The effectiveness validated his ability to direct a picture. Expanded positions not long after. Yet an additional factor weighs in the American scene. Joseph, the Senator McCarthy, had initiated an effort to discredit foreign-born individuals. Communism, well-known names were being singled out. The fact that Bronson's real name can lead turned to him. He decided to alter it. The author, Charles Bronson, was named after Bukinski. The experience was a prudent choice. Given his rebranding and calm demeanor, he rapidly rose to the ranks of the Hollywood's most iconic male actors. Yet his career didn't take off till the 1960s actually burst. What he was known for, quite the figure. Bronson was big in the 60s and 70s, reached the pinnacle of his endeavor. His performance was impactful, supporting roles in major motion pictures such as The Great Escape and Magnificent Seven. It was also named to the Dirty Dozen. The land is deemed an eminent domain. These films produced, his name became well known. European, he was adored by filmmakers. Acclaimed French actor Alain being a fan, DeLong extended an invitation to co-starred with in 1968's Adulami. In the same that year, Bronson was the past of the American West. Once upon a time, it went on to become a famous roles. Things he said, didn't say, and looked memorable expressions of icy glare. In Europe, he became the most famous American. The spotlight. Popularity skyrocketed, for he had hit after hit featured him, including Ryder dealing with precipitation, mechanics, and Stone serial murderer. With each part, his tough guy persona grew. Image. He had already become the leading global box office attraction and was earning $1,000 for each feature film. After that arrived The Death Wish, 1974. The movie depicted the narrative of an average guy who transforms into a vigilante following the brutal assault on his family. Dissenting opinions disliked it first. They believed it brutal, yet it was well received by viewers. The film's great success spawned 4 subsequent films. Many viewers have found Death Wish became the most iconic part of Bronson's professional life. He then mostly focused on positions of power. An actor, he was Mr. Hard Times, St. Ives, Medustique Murder and Telephone. The movies in question received mixed reviews at times, but he was kept in the limelight by them. Towards the end of at the beginning of his career, he collaborated more frequently with filmmaker Thompson, J. Lee. Oh, and he did some TV work as, well, cinema that was distinct from his customary positions, displaying a gentler or more, the dramatic part. Throughout the 90s, Bronson continued to labor. In the end, he showcased their talents in The Indian Runner, a weighty drama that garnered accolades from negative reviewers. Despite the decline in his career, the fact that Bronson could still shock captivating audiences with profound impact. But many years ago, he made a straightforward decision, might ultimately influence the careers of others' entire professional life. That part that nearly went to Brothers Bronson. Prior to Clint Eastwood's debut as a protagonist of westerns, an alternate nearly succeeded him. That individual was Bronson, Charles. As soon as Italian filmmaker in the beginning, Sergio Leone worked on a fistful. When it came to dollars, he had a clear plan in my head. He was hoping for a reserved, strong man to take the lead role. The faceless man. Clint wasn't Leon's initial pick. Located in Eastwood. Yes, Bronson was it. Bronson perused. I was not a fan of the script. According to him, it was awful, in his opinion. That choices impacted cinematic history. Following that, when Bronson declined, Leon extended an offer to William H. Gaines. Plus, that easy toggle provided access to all of Clint's film's professional life. It wasn't, however, the sole instance Bronson declined Leon's offer. In subsequent times he was offered the role of Angel by the director. Eyes, the ruthless good guy gunman, ugliness, and the unpleasant. Once more, Bronson refused to accept. Reason being, he was filming The Dirty Dozen at this very moment. Lee Van Clee made the cut for that part. Unforgettable. To top it all off, these odds Bronson and Leon were able to collaborate in unison, and much to their surprise, it became a major player in Bronson's performance ever. Their journey to epic in unison. Sergio Leone premiered his 1968 film, returning to his realm with Once, Bronson Once in a Western Land. This wasn't merely another Western drama. There was a lengthy, downhill, powerful picture brimming with atmosphere, stillness, once-in-a-lifetime experiences, together with Bronson under the guise of an anonymous man called Music for the harmonica. As the picture opens slowly and quiet, An outlaw trio is patiently waiting at a railway station. It's hot, there's dust, and highly anxious. After a 10-minute period of stillness, the train stops and Harmonica gets off. He hasn't nearby to have a conversation. He's not just hanging around, more substantial. However, the guy he's seeing 3 gunslingers is hardly surprising. They gaze toward him. He observes them. Just one. "We are shy one horse," one of them says, as Bronson plays his harmonica, his "You brought two too," he says, shaking his head. Then, without missing a beat, he opens and fire. Those 5 words in that line have rise to the ranks of Western cinematic canon. Wow, it was awesome. Acute. And the terrible nature of its lack of complexity. Bronson remained silent. It showed no signs of fury. He only informed them in such a merciless manner that they would all make it out alive. That scenario laid the groundwork for the plot and positioned Harmonica as a potentially lethal individuals ever portrayed in a film. And additionally, it served as a reminder to those that it took Bronson very little time to make his argument, the punchline that outshone the greatest. For many of his admirers, Clint Eastwood is supreme monarch of Western one-liners. The lines phrases such as, "Go ahead, brighten my day," and "Do does it make you feel fortunate?" remain well known to this day. Yet there are many who hold the view that Bronson, perhaps the most legendary Western scene, and it happened in the West Coast. When the harpist finally says, "You more than one" is a straightforward matter, however dominant. He remains mute on the matter. It was his humble. The line is left hanging by him, on the ground prior to the incident starts. That is what made it so terrifying, that Bronson gave it. He seemed still, as if he weren't even worried. It was made so because of that. Scary. There was an air of this man having endured worse, yet he remained fearless on any subject. One of his bags was a suitcase, playing the harmonica with one hand, although he remained motionless, unmoving. Which one statement served as a clear warning to the viewers. This was necessary for them. This guy is a threat. A number of many believe. This incident demonstrates that perhaps Eastwood's films had more memorable, in all time. Bronson has the most memorable one-liners in the whole canon of Western cinema. Additionally, the scene was about more than simply the words. It revolved around energy, quiet, and timing. Bronson was a virtuoso at whatever he tried. Bronson possessed more, but Eastwood possessed more. The greatest. We got a lot of fantastic brief statements. As a rule, his protagonist had sharp remark to make either before or after firing the weapon. As a result of build 3 coffins, he says, referring to the money. From the excellent to the bad to the ugly, he lows his voice. There are 2 types of individuals in the entire planet, my mate. Individuals who have weaponry and individuals engaged in excavation. You like it? He was renowned for their lines. Sure thing. But the distinctive feature of Bronson's line washo, serene and under control it felt. The lines that Eastwood uses are strong, yet frequently follow our viewing of his previous take center stage for a bit, along with "Listen, Bronson, it is not true." On one occasion, after a while in the West, you also brought merely 3 lines into the whole film. He has hardly spoken at all, in the slightest. Despite this, he is the screen master. His demeanor is eerily silent. It is evident that his statements carry a danger, as bright as day. Despite the fact that Sergio Leone originally considered Eastwood for the part, Bronson was not a necessary step in the process. Downward, the casting was spot on. In Bronson's natural tranquility, weary eyes, and harmonica, his playing presence left an indelible impression. It only took one note on that harmonica alerted the public that a threat had showed up. The thing that truly sets Bronson's phrase so potent isn't simply his delivery. That's how the whole thing played out. Put together. In a past life in the West, takes his time. With a sluggish start, serene and tranquil. Tension is built up for nearly 10 minutes before the Bronson's is revealed. A wave of heat and insects wash over you, waiting men's monotony. Moreover, afterwards, out of nowhere, harmonica appears. What he enters, his posture, and the manner, his speech is meticulously planned. The sound of a harmonica in the backdrop gives it an eerie quality. The pause prior to gunfire begins with an even sharper line. Additionally, the camera remains on Bronson for a brief period, to make the listeners feel the gravity of what he is stating. Bronson wasn't the only one who enhanced the experience. Executive producer Sergio Donati, Leone's co-writer, assisted form it precisely. Throughout that whole timeline follows the scene. Additionally, after when Bronson says it, everything goes boom. Due of that, this one-liner surpasses all the different people. Due to more than only the words spoken, as a result of the scene that developed surrounding of it. It was a seamless operation. The prose, the performers, the score, and the total stillness. Even Eastwood's devoted fans, I'll be the first to confess that, although his one-liners are more effective, the greatest is Bronson's. Additionally, when observing, under those circumstances, you can see why. The subject is easily forgotten, by the way, and Clint Eastwood did not necessarily play preferred option for a small sum of money. At the time, Clint was not involved while Sergio Leone started casting, concerning anybody. Even now he was the greatest, well known for his part in the TV series Rawhide to Show. Quite a few directors failed to recognize his celebrity not yet. In his part, Eastwood very seldom was. In an effort to acquire well-known brands. It was Henry Fonda he desired, but no, Fonda claimed. He inquired of James Coburn, although the cost of Coburn was prohibitive. Furthermore, different. He was declined by lesser-known actors, among them was Bronson. Leon said, "I really wanted James Coburn," she said afterwards. However, he persisted when that failed, descending the hierarchy. At last, he touched down, a decision taken on Eastwood that was motivated by interest, but no one else sought the position. Steve Reeves, included, even well-known bodybuilder, declined. It was subsequently expressed, "I wouldn't have felt real pleasant while puffing on a cigar," and he squinted for 3 months, didn't think the film would do well, so his efforts were unsuccessful. However, the tiny film changed proved to be an enormous triumph. That being said, Clint Eastwood rose to fame via unexpected event. Those who work with Bronson, not only that, but Clint might have never turned into the faceless stranger. This is having to consider the potential impact of a single actor's turned rejection into success for someone else. A silent voice's last years, an enduring impact giant. As of his retirement in the late 90s, following many years of performing with conviction, quiet types, the pace of play eventually decelerated. On August 30, 2003, he went away at Los Angeles' Cedars-Sinai Medical Facilities, Los Angeles. He lived to be 81 years old. Quite a bit. It was believed that he passed away from pneumonia or memory loss, although his official death certificate provided a more nuanced account. It was included airway obstruction due to advanced lung cancer, plus long-term conditions affecting the lungs and lung disease, angina pectoris. To put it simply, a lot had happened to Bronson's physique, and he, like many other guys of his age, guarded his suffering from others, while he was laid to rest in Vermont, apart from the Hollywood's limelight. On the other hand, his reputation continues forever. No need for Bronson to yell as an argument. His potential is greater when he hashes more screen time than the average actor's entire monologue. That is why, up to this day, many people continue to see similarities between him and Clint located in Eastwood. You know, even after all, despite the passage of time, discussions regarding with Charles Bronson and Clint Eastwood. They stood tall, kept to themselves, and commanded the screen with authority. But their journeys diverged significantly. The Eastwood flourished as a filmmaker. In his profound story, Hedelays and assumed emotionally challenging roles. For his work, he was named one of the Hollywood's best filmmakers. However, he had beginning with the part that Bronson rejected, but the experience stayed with me. Bronson remained faithful to his persona. He persisted acting as courageous, unsung heroes. I didn't pursue prizes over the course of judged, and that's why the audience adored he had. So when individuals inquire about the supremely rugged Westerner, there isn't a simple solution. One item, though, stands out. The contrasting Eastwood with Bronson includes more than simply their assigned responsibilities. In regards to the impression they made on us, the stillness conveyed a deeper meaning than mere words could. Who do you believe had the more effective screen? Actor Clint Eastwood or director Charles? You mean Bronson? Which one-liner did you receive? Gives you the chills? Tell us what you think in the section below. Additionally, make sure to please like, subscribe, and keep an eye out for much more astonishing tales from the film industry by interesting past. Catch you later.